What the hell is going on?
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Donald Trump found a way to go lower than he already has. Just when you thought that he had reached the very pit of his possibilities, he found a way to go even lower.
You are going to love President Trump.
Donald Trump has reversed a ban on importing trophies from lions hunted for sport that was brought in after Cecil the lion got killed. You remember Cecil the lion, don't you? Yeah, he was killed in a dentist-related incident in that he was shot by one. Big cats trophies collected in Zambia and Zimbabwe, wherever they are, and that's where dentist Walter Palmer killed Cecil, they're going to all be permitted now, says Donald Trump, because of, he's just enacting the will of the people. When Cecil was killed in July 2015, the whole world got upset and reached for its tissues. And at that point, endangered lion trophies, like their head, for instance, or their little feet, they were banned from being imported into America, which makes it less enjoyable for those dipsticks that go over there to shoot them, because they can't bring the proof of, their heroism back. That was Obak Arama that banned that. You remember Obak Arama, don't you? Yeah, that's him. Also known as the good old days, or the boring old days, when things were a little more in control.
It has gotten totally out of control.
Yeah, now the orange ape, that is Obak Arama's successor, has not only dropped that ban on lions, but retroactively lifted it for lion trophies collected during the time that the ban was in place. All of you people that went over there and shot lions or tigers or pumas or, all of the rest of the flora and fauna, they probably didn't spare the flora either. Just shoot anything that moves or doesn't, whatever. But all of you people that went over there and shot them when the ban was in place, you couldn't import it. Well, if you kept them in a freezer, good news. And he's doing this because if there is one demographic that has been cruelly overlooked, it's rich white men with guns. When will they ever get a break?
I make $400 million a year, so what difference does it make?
And Trumpists will say that hunting wildlife brings in big money in tourism. Let me stop you there in case you were going to call in and tell me that. See, the problem with that is that most tourists want to see animals while they're still alive. It's just a small detail, but an important one. And guess who are great fans of trophy hunting? Safely encased in their four-wheel drive cars, protected by rangers, while they bravely shoot an animal that's so far away it doesn't even know they're there. Step forward, Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, Donald Trump's sons, Donald Jr. and Eric Trump. There's bragging pictures of them holding up dead animals like elephants and well, they weren't holding up an elephant. He was holding up the tail of an elephant that he had bravely killed, cut the tail off once he'd shot it dead. They're holding up bits of the kind of animals that David Attenborough points a camera at. These dipsticks point high-powered rifles at them, from a position of great safety. And then they put selfies all over the internet to demonstrate what big, tough guys they are. God, make me sick, these people. These people in particular, Donald Trump's sons, Donald Jr. and Eric Trump. I think they're from the genius Ass. Yeah, not the genius, genus. Big difference, huge. You're from the Ass genus. That makes more sense. So at the start of the 20th century, there were estimated to be as many 4 and 5 million elephants in Africa. Now there's 350,000 elephants remaining. So you better buy some bullets because they're running out. There were 100,000 Asian elephants in the wild. Now there's only 35,000 left. Guess how many are killed by poachers every day. 100. If you guessed 100, you win a major prize. Major prize not available. Terms and conditions apply. Always read the label. Never operate heavy machinery. Elephants are believed to be among the smartest animals on Earth, as opposed to the current President of the United States of America.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
Nobody has ever said that he is among the smartest animals on Earth, ever. I mean, not even he would say something as ridiculous as that. I thought we were supposed to be kind to elephants or any animal that's supposed to be smart. I mean, like dolphins, for instance. Dolphins are fish. Any fool know that. And they're very, very smart fish, which is why we only eat small amounts of them. You know, if they get caught up in the tuna nets, then okay, if we have to, we'll eat some then. But we prefer not to. I know they're mammals. Elephants also among the smartest animals on Earth, with the biggest brains of any animal. Maybe we should get them to be the
You are going to love President Trump.
to be the president of the United States of America. You only have to wave your hand in front of this touchscreen. So, sometimes you have to hit it with a hammer to work. Other times you just a breath of air will set it off. The smartest animals on Earth, and Donald Trump has re-instigated the ability for people to go over there and shoot them and then bring back their heads to put on their walls to make themselves feel manly, because it's almost always men. How can you feel more macho in killing something that has absolutely no chance of fighting back? I mean, if you went in hand-to-hand combat with an animal, even if it was a squirrel, then there would be some justification for you feeling like a tough guy. But not 300 yards away, standing poking your head through the roof of a Range Rover and hitting it with your laser sight. Where's the sport in that? Elephants' cerebral processes enable them to comprehend emotions like grief, joy, and anger. And you've seen that, right? On the TV, on those David Attenborough shows. They do exhibit emotions like grief and joy and anger. And some of them can paint, as anyone who's been to Thailand can tell you. It makes them quick learners who never forget a face.
Like to punch him in the face.
Yeah. I'd like to see an elephant punch Donald Trump in the face. Who's with me? Show of hands. And for the people to say, Donald Trump said that it's good for tourism, and those countries need those tourist dollars. Well, on the other hand, a single elephant alive could be worth as much as $1.6 million in terms of tourism revenues that it brings in. Because, like I said before, most people prefer to see their animals alive rather than dead and hanging off the wall of some stupid rich bloke. $1.6 million per elephant to mostly deprived areas, but, that's nothing set against the thrill of executing a rare animal for a rich man on holiday. It's just, it's kind of painful. Donald Trump, you are the stupidest president ever.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I've got no idea what that's doing. I'm clicking it, but it appears in a completely different part of the screen to what it normally does. Things are a bit upside down here so far. Isn't that correct, my glamorous assistant?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. We had to have a man in several times. If only there had been a woman available, it would have been fixed too sweet. Unless that makes me a sexist pig, in which case I retract that comment. Enfield. Hello, Jackie.
Hello.
Jackie.
Hello. You are absolutely right that a woman would put everything in place immediately.
Yeah, we had a man in, and he fixed one problem and then caused another, so we had to get another man in to fix the problem that the original man caused.
That's men for you.
Typical.
You should go to the women.
There wasn't one available, unfortunately.
You didn't ask me, did you?
Well, that is true. Yeah, I'll put you on speed dial from now on, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I think it's absolutely disgusting
What?
how they can kill these elephants.
Oh, that. I thought we were still talking about the equipment for this show.
Actually, you know what? There was something else there. But anyway, no. Yes, I did phone to say about the elephants. I think it's disgusting.
Why would anybody do that? See, that's... I mean, apart from his own family like to go and shoot animals, apart from that bit... he is egocentric, but not to that extent, surely, that he wouldn't enact a law just so his family could go and enjoy their holidays more. So it must be. The only thing I can think of is he sits there all day trying to come up with little bombs to throw out the window for the press to go and harry, so they're not concentrating on what a catastrophic president he is, and the ties with the Russians, and how he doesn't pay his contractors, and what a giant crook he is accused of being. I think he just throws these distraction bombs out the window. And what can I come up with next that's going to really, really upset the Liberals? Oh, I know, shooting lions.
Yeah. It's disgusting how you could just kill these animals just because you want to kill the animals. I mean, you know, there's no logic in it, you know. It's this power thing that, you know, I'm a real man.
Yeah.
I can kill the animals when I want to, you know. I'm in power.
There doesn't seem to me to be much distance between taking great pleasure in killing animals and taking great pleasure in killing people. I mean, it's not such a big jump, is it, really?
No, not at all. Can I just say it, Nick?
Yes.
I love your program.
Oh, thanks, Jackie.
I love you.
And
I'm sorry I had to say it live on air.
And
I hope no one heard it.
Nobody heard that. Don't worry about it. And as soon as anything goes wrong, then we'll send a car for you. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Wait a minute, I'm not finished.
Yeah, that's the problem. Big problem, huge. Jer says we could have President Trunk. Honestly, if there was an elephant in the White House making vast deposits on the White House carpet, would you actually notice the difference? Dennis says being a dolphin must be the most frustrating experience, to be the most intelligent creature on the planet, but only having flippers and no hands, so you can't make anything. Yeah. Well, I would think so, yeah. But we can't relate to dolphins or fish, really. I mean, fish are supposed to be quite intelligent. You've seen that David Attenborough program with a fish trying to break open whatever it was by bashing it on a rock. That seemed quite smart. I mean, it was a little bit dull. You know, you can only be interested in fish for so long, which is why goldfish are such a boring pet. But we can't relate to them because of their fishy mean. You know, they're underwater, and we can't be underwater. Their experience of life is completely different to ours, so it's hard to relate to them. But they may well be just as smart as comparable animals that you know, walk and talk and squawk. Just because they're living in water, why should they be discriminated against? Mind you, Donald Trump's sons aren't shooting them, so they should. I mean, how about if they were dolphins? We seem to have a big thing about dolphins. But what if elephants are smarter? How about if I, as a rich person, were to take a boat out on the ocean and go dolphin shooting? How would that sound? I bet I'm putting ideas into his head now, because he just must sit on his gold throne all day long, watching Fox News, waiting for a story to come up about him, and about how he's the best president ever, and thinking up ways to upset the people who didn't vote for him. I can't think of any other reason why he would do these things. I mean, the list of what he has done so far, that practically everybody that voted for him would be aghast at, is, well, it's as long as my arm. I'll give you some of them if you like. Pretty much everybody that ever voted for Donald Trump would be stunned at the things that he's done, but you don't notice that he's done them. Maybe he is smart, because I'm conflicted. He's either the stupidest person that ever ran a country, or he's really, really smart. It's probably somewhere in the middle, edging towards the stupid end of the scale. But he does have this incredible ability to first magnetize an audience, There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's a tremendous performer. He should be a carnival barker. Roll up, you know, that kind of thing. Or a street corner con artist. Unfortunately, he's managed to con his way into the White House, and he's our boss now. God. You know, in the future, people are going to be looking back at this period in history and thinking, God, what on earth? I mean, assuming that there is a future, and that in the I'm trying to think of another word for future, but I can't think of one. In the near future, there's 3 uses of the word future in the same paragraph. Forgive me. Here's a fourth. But in the near future, assuming that the world isn't reduced to a smoking cinder, because you know, Kim Jong-un criticised Donald Trump's hair, then people are going to be looking back thinking, what the hell were they thinking? We're going through a stupid phase. Everywhere you look, stupid. Harry says dolphins probably have very intellectual thoughts, but when they come to communicate them, all they can do is make clicking noises. Yeah, and mostly they're saying to each other, damn these flippers, why can't we invent something? Here's a call in Dagenham. Hello, Pat.
Oh, hang on. Find the phone. Hello.
Please come closer to the phone, Pat.
Yeah, can you hear me?
No?
Of course you can.
Yes, Pat.
Right. Well, I can't tell you how much I loathe that man, and I can't understand American people voting for him, except that he is like a performer.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think he has actually now allowing ivory into the country, and people, when they shoot an animal, they can bring a head in and all that kind of thing.
Or their feet.
And the feet and the tail, yeah. Whereas in other countries they're stopping that to serve the animals.
Yeah.
He now goes out and wants to shoot them with his sons, and I think I can't describe what I would do to him if I had him here now, tied up.
Steady on, Pat. See, the FBI and the CIA and the National Security Agency and all of the rest of them are monitoring the airwaves automatically. They're not actually listening, but they have computer programs that are scanning the airwaves and every telephone conversation that anybody ever makes and every email that you write, and they're scanning them for phrases like, what I would do to Donald Trump if I had him tied up. Can I suggest that you don't say that anymore, Pat, or at the very least, pull the curtains over the windows so that when they burst in, you don't get broken glass all over the room.
Yeah, you've got to be careful. I get your point. But I think I don't like him, and I just don't understand the American people for being taken in by him. I mean, they got the Paris Agreement, is it? The climate change?
Well, see, this seems like because he threw the Paris Agreement under a bus, under a diesel bus, by the way, and all the rest of the world thought, what the... You know, we've got to live on the same planet as each other, Donald. You're not really helping. That's what they thought. And they thought, well, you know, what the hell, we'll just go ahead and do it anyway, and maybe America will catch up later. Because it's a planet-wide issue, where it's the only world we've got. And so he exited that, claiming that it was a bad deal, which is just such an ignorant thing to say, because it wasn't a binding deal, it was voluntary. That was the thing about the Paris Climate Agreement. It was voluntary. There was no deal. They weren't being having their feet held over a fire. They could decide to help or not. And he backed out of it because he thinks he's the greatest negotiator that the world has ever seen, and anything that Obama did must be killed like a lion.
Yeah.
And the trophy thing seems to be that with a cherry on top. It's like, what else can I do to really, really upset liberals?
I know, but what can we do with him? Nothing. But one day, something will happen, and I don't know what.
One day he'll be tied up in your cellar, Pat.
my bedroom. I'll get all my cats to attack him.
Well, that would be ironic.
But
Yeah.
you know, with the climate thing, they've said now it's heating up faster than it should be, and it is. And you know, I don't know.
I think it's
And also the
if it
ocean.
is, as 99% of scientists say, and if we are responsible for it, then this sideshow of Brexit and indeed Donald Trump is so completely insignificant that we'll wonder why we were spending so much time on it, not addressing the real problem, which is that we are all doomed.
We are. Yeah, they are. And
I
the
mean, Dagenham, Pat, here comes the bad news. If you really, really like Dagenham.
I don't.
You don't? Okay, here comes the good news. Dagenham will probably be underwater within, I don't know, I'll just make it up, shall I? Everybody else does. There's no such thing
Yeah.
as facts anymore. Within 20 years, Pat, you better start building a boat.
I know, because we're right on the River Thames.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, London
the,
will be gone. London will be gone. New York will be gone. LA will probably be gone. Miami will definitely be gone. And guess what, Donald? Your golf course is in Miami. Yeah.
How'd you get the noises?
What noises?
That person screaming. It's so funny. But anyway, I'm quite happy living here now. I'm older, so I'm a little bit old. I'm getting older.
Right.
And
Now, you're not a NIMBY, are you, Pat?
a NIMBY.
NIMBY, a not in my backyard type of person that Sajid Javid was banging on about, that people like you are, or, well, not like you because you haven't been found guilty yet. You haven't answered the question yet. But people who are comfortably well off, who own their own home, who don't have a mortgage on it anymore and are preventing other houses from being built in their area. Those people are the problem as regards the housing crisis, and not
Not at all.
people
I'll
from...
go and build houses everywhere.
Right, okay.
Social.
Yeah, there must be barely an inch left in Dagenham to build on.
Well, there isn't. That's true. They could do a floating platform in the River Thames, maybe, and get the houses built on there.
But that wouldn't improve the look of Dagenham, though. At least we can agree on that, because Dagenham is practically perfect in every way, isn't it, Pat?
Oh, my
I'll
God.
take that as a no. Thanks, Pat. I've got to go. Cheers, my dear. Honestly, if you've never been to Dagenham, then cancel all of your future holidays. I put that right at the top of the list. It is absolutely beautiful. Cancel Italy, Austria, Switzerland, all of those people pale into insignificance when it comes to the beauty that is Dagenham. Trust me when I tell you.
We love you long time.
Carrie says the Japanese puffer fish creates the most extraordinary designs in the sand on the seabed using their fins. It's art, that's smart, says Carrie. Art? Oh, well, then I'll give you $450 million for it. How does that sound? As long as it's an original. Lewisham. Hannah.
Oh, hello, Nick.
Hannah.
Do you get the impression the Trumps are working toward delusions of grandeur?
Working towards. I think
Yeah,
he's
hoping to-
achieved that right enough.
No. Hang on a minute.
Oh, there's
Hang on.
more.
Yeah, there's more. To create a political dynasty a la the Kennedys. And clearly that flippity-gibbet daughter of his is being primed to become the first woman president. And if that happens, how
think,
that
it's-
Trump will
it's-
gloat and gloat at Hillary Clinton to his grave and beyond.
I think it's creepier than that. I think that his daughter is...
Behind the throne.
No, no, it's worse than that, Hannah. The way that Donald Trump speaks, the way that Donald Trump speaks about his daughter, she's liable to become first lady.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Yes, isn't he? He described his daughter to
I know.
as isn't she hot? What father would say that about his daughter?
He's comprehensively disgusting, absolutely odious. But this climate change business,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna bite him on the derriere. Quite a considerable number of states will defy him.
Well, California already is. They're saying, to hell with you, Donald Trump. We're going to go ahead and try to and work towards low pollution and renewable energy and all the rest of it.
And you know why?
And and Donald Trump's still going on about clean coal as though he's going to wash it.
It's for a reason that he will understand perfectly, because there is money in renewable energy. It's,
Yeah, but the problem, Hannah, is that nobody who runs a renewable energy company gave him money for his election campaign, whereas the coal industry gave him hundreds of millions of dollars. That's why he's keen on coal. It's just payback.
Yeah, and also tantrums and trying and getting back at people.
Richard Branson said it was the most dispiriting meeting he'd ever had with a businessman when he went to see Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was just going on and on about, this person didn't give me the money that I asked for as a loan, and that other person beat me in a deal to a hotel, and I'm going to get them if it's the last thing I do, and he's just absolutely racked with thoughts of vengeance.
Whining and vengeance. You've got a sound effect on his whining. But having said all that, I don't know. I have this gut feeling that a lot of Americans, obviously, how sick the Americans felt when he got in, let alone the rest of the world.
Well, half of them.
Well, I think we're all going to get another surprise, because. Not a lot. What I'm trying to say is that the youngsters didn't get out and make sure that he didn't get in. Not enough of the African Americans got off their bums to make sure that he didn't get in, like they did when Obama came in. They all got out to make sure Obama got in. And I think that is what is going to happen in his next term. I really, really, really think that 4 years of him and his stupidity and his retracing and going back into the 1800s,
You think he's going to be out in his ear after 4 years?
I think so.
You know what, Hannah? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think he's going to win again. I think he's going to be a two-term president, because the people that voted for him still think he's doing a fantastic job.
Do you want to give me a tenner on it?
No.
All right. Okay.
But thanks for asking, Hannah.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Ta-da. Yeah, it's extraordinary. America is divided right down the middle. Not geographically speaking, but as far as demographics are concerned. The rabid right absolutely love Donald Trump. It's amazing, really. The poor people who voted for him in vast numbers still think he's on their side. Incredible. He represents everything that they would normally dislike, the people in the countryside, from the ding-a-ling states. Ding-a-ling-ling-ling. Which is what I mean when I say the ding-a-ling states. He's a city slicker. He's a New Yorker. They hate that. There's nothing authentic about him. He lives in a gold flat that looks like the inside of an Arab woman's jewelry box. He couldn't be less Middle America if he tried. And yet they seem to have bought into this, we're going to make America great again, and everything's going to be fantastic and huge and tremendous. Everybody says so. They've totally bought into that. It's staggering, really. And everything he's done so far. Here's a small list. I won't give you the full list of just gobsmacking things that he's done so far under the sort of smoke screen of controversial things that he says, like this lion thing. He doesn't care about killing lions. He at best he might have done it for his sons. But he doesn't care about that. He's sitting on the toilet all day trying to think up ways to irritate liberals by tweet. He revoked a rule that expanded the number of people who could earn overtime pay. Now, you're hollering yokels showing up in Make America Great Again hats during one of his rallies I would imagine would be the kind of people that could have earned overtime pay and now can't. Because it won't be bankers and lawyers. He reversed a rule that would mandate that oil and gas companies report payments to foreign governments. Now, you'd think that you'd want to know that. If they were colluding with, I don't know, the Russians, for instance. He cancelled a rule which meant that financial advisors have to act in the best interests of their clients. What? I mean, just pause and think about that for a second. After the last financial crash, we're sitting in the period just before the next one, which will be China's housing bubble and our own car credit bubble. But we're still remembering the last financial crash. We're still trying to climb our way out of that giant hole. We'll probably spend the rest of our lives trying to make the money back that we lost. And after that crash, there was a rule that came in under Obama, I believe, that insisted that financial advisors act in the best interests of their clients. Now, you wouldn't think that you'd need a rule written in law, because you would expect that when you go to a financial advisor. Because that advice ain't free. They'll charge you thousands of pounds for that advice. It's like going to the dentist and him just asking him whether he has signed up to make your teeth better or worse. He repealed a bill that mandated that employers maintain records of workplace injuries. Again, probably not such a big deal if you're a millionaire property developer or a banker, for instance. But if you were in construction or you went to work on an oil rig, then it might be nice to know if 10 people died during that job last week. So he removed that. Now, you'd think that that alone would cause the people that voted for him, the poor yokels, to think, well, wait a minute, maybe he's not on our side. But no. He rescinded an Obama effort to reduce mandatory sentences. Now, there's some people in America serving life sentences for stealing a pizza because it happened to be the third thing that they did. 3 strikes and you're out. And there's mandatory sentences. America locks up more of its citizens than any other country in the world, including Russia, for crying out loud. Because there's big money. It's a private system over there. It's all about the money, honey. So you lock more people up for longer, and the people that run the prisons are going to make much more money. It's disproportionately affecting the poor, of course. And they're still voting for him. They still think he's doing a great job. He reversed a ban on civil forfeiture. Now, that's where a police person... Now, just imagine this for a second. Say a policeman stopped you in the street and said, I think that you might have committed a crime. Therefore, I'm going to take your car. And while you're at it, can you give me the keys for your house? Because I'm going to take that too. You don't have to be convicted of any crime. You don't have to be convicted in a court of law. A policeman can just take your stuff. I'm not making that up. Look it up. It's called civil forfeiture. And it was banned, and now Donald Trump's brought it back in again. And again, bankers and oil tycoons probably not going to be affected by that. He has cancelled efforts to address problematic police departments, as in police departments that send their officers out to shoot black people a lot. Don is just fine with that. And, of course, he withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement because it was a terrible deal. He blocked the Clean Power Plan. That was implemented under Obama, focused on reducing greenhouse gases, as Toya used to say. Almost as though, because he's going to build a big, beautiful wall, those greenhouse gases will stop at the wall. He ended on a study on the health effects of mountaintop removal mining. Of course, the miners gave him a lot of money for his re-election, or his election, rather. A lot of money.
I make $400 million a year, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, he kept going on about, he's not taking any money from, lobbyists. But yes, he did. Practically everything that man says is a lie. He took an enormous amount from mining companies. And the way they mine some things in America is to actually take the top of a mountain off. Now, you wouldn't think that that would would promote health in the local population. They blast away the tops of mountains to get at the coal seams under the surface. Not dig precise, neat little holes like we do and then ferry the stuff out by lift. No, they just take the top of a mountain off. And there was a study on the health effects of doing that. It wasn't banned. They were just studying it. And he cancelled the study. Didn't want to know the answer to that question. He rescinded a rule mandating that rising sea levels be considered when building public infrastructure in flood-prone areas. Just get your head around that for a second. When you're building public infrastructure like roads and hospitals, for instance, and schools, when you're building it in a flood-prone area, previously you had to actually take into consideration where it might flood. Now you don't, thanks to Donald Trump. It just goes on and on and on. It's just excruciating. And still he's throwing out red Make America Great Again hats, and the people that are negatively affected by all of these things and more are going, woo! America! He is going to get in again. I'm telling you now. He's going to be a 2-term president.
What the hell is going on?
Zach says, Hannah is so right. I can't remember what she said. What did she say? I cannot bear Ivanka Trump. Oh, okay. He says, my prediction months ago is that she and Jared will be the next first family. One day, I'm sure, they irritate me with a white-hot passion. He just seems so, I don't know, Jared Kushner, he looks like you could see through him. He just seems so weak and thin. Not thin physically, well, thin physically, but also, emotionally and mentally. The jobs that Donald Trump has given to Jared Kushner are just absolutely incredible. He's treating the whole thing like, I think he's treating it as a joke, as a game. Like he still thinks he's on TV as a reality show TV host. And I won't give you all of the just eye-boggling things that Donald Trump has done so far under the smokescreen of all of this controversy that he foments on virtually an hourly basis. He's getting a lot of things done that a lot of his billionaire friends are going to love. You know, like allowing minors minors, E-R-S, not O-R-S, to pour their dumping waste directly into streams without cleaning it. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. But he really, really hates animals. He repealed a ban on lead bullets, which were banned because the lead can poison wildlife, but now you can poison wildlife over and above the things that you're actually shooting. He reversed a ban on hunting bears and wolves, and he reversed a rule limiting the number of animals that can be trapped or killed in fishing nets. So that's your dolphin problem right there. So Donald Trump hates nature. Maybe it's because of what nature has done to him. He seems to really despise animals, apart from that blonde rat that sits on top of his head. And there was a story that came out today about what kids think when they think of America. And kids think, the first thing that you say when you say, and by kids I mean primary school children. Primary school children say America to primary school children, and their immediate thought is Donald Trump. Oh, no. Oh, no. The kids have been infected with this madness. More children associate the United States of America with Donald Trump than Disney World, according to a poll. He's more presidential than Mickey Mouse and Goofy.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
When British primary school children were asked for the first thing that came to mind about the United States, over a quarter said Donald Trump. Where would they get that from? I mean, they aren't reading newspapers and watching I suppose it's on Facebook. He's all over Twitter. I wonder if they think he's a very nice person.
Donald Trump is not a nice person.
Dollars and cents. It's all about the money, honey. They were mentioned by about 6% of primary school children. Yellow taxes by 5%. Really? And about 4% said the flag. Stars and stripes. DC superheroes such as Spider-Man and Superman and all the rest of it, Marvel superheroes, mentioned by 3%. And the Statue of Liberty was the response of about 3%. Donald Trump, the first thing that comes into their minds. Well, he has successfully inveigled himself into the brain of the world.
I've been successful in every business I've been in.
Actually, he's been unsuccessful in practically every business he's been in. I got a list of his failures as well, if I start running out of things to say, which seems unlikely. They were asked which country they would like to live in, primary school children. 8.5% said the United States of America. 9.7% said the moon. More children, knowing that Donald Trump is the President of the United States of America, would like to leave the planet than live in America. Australia came number one. They hate you, Donny, with a passion. Children hate you. What do you say to that?
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Yeah. And the Russia investigation keeps on going. And Jared Kushner is latest in these sites. And if he goes to jail, oh, fingers crossed, wouldn't that be fantastic? He would last about 10 seconds. Have you ever seen anybody whiter than him? If he goes to jail, then who's going to be running America? Because his father-in-law certainly isn't. Here are the jobs that Donald Trump gave to Jared Kushner. And if you are unfamiliar with his work, Jared Kushner is the guy who married Donald Trump's daughter, who Donald Trump calls hot. Donald Trump calls his own daughter hot. It's a bit of a screwed up family. So here's Jared Kushner. He's had no experience of any government position of any kind whatsoever. He's not one of these rich kids that got given a lot of money and has bought property in New York. That's his only experience. Jared Kushner is responsible for negotiating for negotiating peace in the Middle East. And how's that going, by the way?
Fabulous.
He's also responsible for solving America's opioid epidemic. And responsible for diplomacy with Mexico. And responsible for diplomacy with China. And responsible for reforming care for veterans, as in the military. He's also responsible for reforming the entire criminal justice system. And if that weren't enough, he is responsible for reinventing the entire government and making it work like a business. 7 jobs. And he also put him in charge of the White House Office of American Innovation. Another job which is designed to infuse fresh thinking into Washington. Well, whatever that smell is coming from Washington, it ain't fresh. I know that. It's like Donald Trump just said to his son-in-law, because don't forget, he's his son-in-law. Here, you run the country. You can find me on the toilet thinking up tweets that liberals will hate. And if not there, then I'll be on the golf course. The stuff that's going on over there is just absolutely staggering. And the world is going to hell in a handcart, and all he's thinking of is how to make shooting lions more efficient. God, it's just mind-boggling. It really is. I don't know what to say anymore. Still, only another what is it? Only another 7 years of him to go. Exactly. After the news, I would like to talk about homes, or our lack of them, And the Community Secretary Sajid Javid says that the lack of homes is specifically the responsibility of old people who have them.
Well, let's get back to it.
Yeah, I think Boris Johnson has delighted us enough. Maybe a period of silence would be a good idea. Or is that just me? Peter says that you are forgetting that if anything happens to Trump, then his God-fearing vice president is going to be running the world. Not sure we're ready for that either. Well, you know, Mike Pence. Yeah, he's another one of those religious extremists. Another religious extremist.
Oh, no.
He's such an extremist, he thinks that the world is, 5,000 years old? And that Adam and Eve ran around the Garden of Eden with dinosaurs. Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. That's my religious opinion, which is just as valid as his. I think that it would be an improvement, though, as opposed to just this chaos of impending doom that we have going on in the White House at the minute. I mean, he's like an ape sitting on a car tyre, chucking his feces about, Donald Trump. Let's have a call in Carnforth. Annie.
Hello, Nick.
Annie.
Yeah, I was just going to say about Trump and the lion and elephant trophy thing.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's done it to appeal to the huge amount of people in America who are into hunting, shooting, and fishing. And you were just saying those other anti-animal things that you were reading out. They're actually pro hunting, shooting, and fishing, aren't they? They just love to shoot anything that moves, really, don't they? Like the old moose shooting Senator, what was her name?
The moose.
Palin.
Yeah, the moose shooting lady from Alaska.
Yeah. I mean, they are very into that, and I suppose it would be, for the ones who aren't that well off but like to really get out there and do a lot of that. That would probably be, their dream, to make it big one day and be able to go to Africa and be able to, bring back some lion head.
If only they'd paid attention in school and become dentists, then they would be able to do it. Yeah, I bet when Sarah Palin heard it, she said,
"Can I get a hallelujah?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, it'd be absolutely wonderful if he actually went to Africa with is it his kids that are like doing this sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he went along with them and they were, out on some hunting trip, sleeping out in some lodge in the middle of nowhere, it would just be poetic justice. Justice if some rogue lion just, broke in and attacked him. And,
well, I would like to see them in hand-to-hand combat. Even the odds up a bit.
Yes, and then perhaps the lion could mount his head on the wall, because he is quite leonine-looking, actually, isn't he, with that thing floating about on the top of his head,
I
bit like a
suppose
mane.
so, yeah. If you had to say what animal he was, he would be the head of a lion, the body of an ass.
Yeah.
And the brain, too.
Well, the brain of an amoeba, really. Well, although, yeah, I know what you mean about him. I'm never sure, because, I mean, he is governing totally, all the other things you were reading out, he's just governing totally in favour of capitalism,
billionaires.
Really, isn't he?
Well, it's not just capitalism, it's the people who have made it in capitalism, not even millionaires. We're talking about billionaires.
Yeah, the owners of capital, that's what I mean.
Right.
The big business, or just even business owners, full stop.
It's just amazing to me that he can be so obvious and so naked with it, and there's a horrible thought.
No, don't go there, Nick.
So obvious with who he is governing for the benefit of, and yet people who are being actively affected negatively by the things that he's doing are still hollering that they love him. I mean, maybe it's just a racial thing, because black people sure didn't vote for Donald Trump, and white people of most demographics actually did. Even women, white women voted for Donald Trump. Can you believe that?
I will be so great to women. I cherish women.
I do think that there's been a big anti having a black president in the White House backlash. I really do think that was a part of it. I don't think that was all of it by any means, but I do think that's been a big part of it. I think there's some of the, white Americans who are very, a bit on the white supremacist side, or if not that, just racist anyway. I just think it was just too much for them. They couldn't take it at all and didn't like it. And him being so anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim and yeah, I think he.
And does it ring any bells, by the way? Anti-immigrant, anti-globalization. And it's the same thing as Brexit. It seemed to me it was the same issue, more or less, voted for by the same kind of people, more or less.
Definitely, his good friend Nigel is very like him.
Yeah,
isn't he?
and both issues were affected in one way or another by Russia. It seems to be the only person that's won both things is Vladimir Putin. He seems to be like a Bond villain mastermind.
Yeah, well, I think he's quite happy with himself at the moment, isn't he?
He'd be absolutely delighted, what with being the richest person in the world and all.
Yes. And I think,
but that's a secret, though, Annie. Don't tell anybody that.
No. I think our government, though, are similar to Trump. But I mean, Trump's like that. Our government on steroids, because our government definitely rule in favour of big business and everything. You've only got to think about all the tax cuts they've made to big business since they've been in. They've been cutting corporation tax, capital gains, inheritance tax. And the bank levy, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well, does that seem like a pattern?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I mean, they're just a slightly toned down. They are a bit toned down. At least they haven't sort of decided to come out of the climate change. The Paris climate change thing. And,
but it wouldn't surprise me. But they have different fish to fry at the moment.
Oh yeah. But if you look at Nigel Farage, actually, his ideas and Trump's are really identical. Because I actually tried to read some of the UKIP manifesto at one time just to see what they were up to, and their stuff on energy is quite amazing. It's like they want to UKIP want to abolish the Climate Change Act. They want to get health leather back into coal again for some reason. They're really big into fracking. I think it says something like "Let's get fracking" or something. And I'm thinking, oh God, why? Well, I suppose I see why, because it's all big business, isn't it?
Well, they seem to be being either informed by or paid by the same people. And it all comes down to a couple of billionaires, a few very, very powerful and shady individuals.
Yeah.
And that's not including Vladimir Putin, who seems to have his hand in like fomenting discord in everywhere that's not Russia.
Oh, definitely. Well, that will, because he feels threatened, doesn't he, by certain people, particularly by America, I think, or by NATO. So and Europe and the EU in general. So he just wants to sort of mess it all up so that we're all fighting amongst each other, and then we might forget about him for a bit. You know what I mean? Take the heat off him a bit.
Right.
But
okay. Yeah. Well, it's hard to know what's going to happen next. I mean, I apart from Donald Trump winning the election, I haven't been able to predict anything that's happened so far. But I think I will be proven correct when I say that he's going to win a second term. It seems it's just. His popularity ratings are the lowest of any president ever. But the people that voted for him still will vote for him again. Their opinion of him hasn't moved one iota. It's just everybody else's. The people that voted for Hillary, the people that voted for other, and the people that didn't go out and vote at all of those people hate him with passion. But it's the people that voted for him that will go out in vast numbers again. I bet he's a second-term president.
But if you could get enough of the ones who didn't even bother to vote, because I mean, think if I was in America, I'd have thought, oh God, what a dreadful choice. I probably would have had to vote for Clinton, but I can see why some people didn't want to vote for either of them. But I'm quite sure that a lot of them will get off their backsides this time, because he is just so awful. So, if maybe they can, motivate the people that didn't vote last time, even if the same amount of people in the middle bit, still vote for him. And, you don't know how it's going to end up, because if all that stuff that you were saying about, health and safety stuff at work and overtime and all that stuff, I mean, if that starts to affect those people that have voted for him, a lot of them, maybe they're going to be thinking,
as long as they put the blame in the correct place, and they will be invited not to by the vast public relations machine that is the Rupert. It's almost like Rupert Murdoch is actually the president of the United States of America, because Donald Trump sees something on Rupert Murdoch's Fox News, and then it becomes government policy within the minute by him tweeting it out that this is what we're going to do now. So I don't know. Maybe there are other hands at work. Here, Annie, I'm going to have to go, but thanks a lot. When I come back, I want to talk about this. The Communities Secretary, Sajid Javid. He's the fellow that's in charge of housing policy. He's attacked the over 60s. It's your fault if you're over 60 because you're resisting the changes needed to kickstart house building. It's NIMBYism. That's the problem. It's not people coming over here. It's the people that are here already that refuse to allow house building in their area. And there's enough of them that can that have successfully stymied house building here, there, and everywhere, baby. I also want to talk about a transaction fee. I bought tickets to an event, and I was charged a transaction fee. And there was a little sign next to it that said, "What is this? Click here to find out." And I found out, and the explanation is even worse than I expected. So I'll talk about that as well.
Anybody care what this guy thinks?
No!
So we're talking about house building now. Sajid Javid, the Communities Secretary, he's in charge of the housing policy. He made an attack on the over 60s. It's people who are over 60 years old who own their houses and don't want any more houses built near them. NIMBYs, in other words, not in my backyard, not in my village, not in my town, and definitely nowhere near me. We're full up. You know, those people. They're the problem. They are gumming up the works, so says Sajid Javid. I'll come to more of that in a minute. First of all, here's a call in Worksop. Hello, David.
Hi. Right, I'd like to say I've got a plan for all these celebrities, the rich people, the MPs who whine about ordinary people who don't want extra house building. One of the problems with extra house building, it's not the house building necessarily, it's the lack of increase in the infrastructure. So where we live, they're building another 600 houses. Are we getting another doctors? Are we getting any more shops? Are we getting any more facilities? Are we getting any more transport? Well, of course we're not. They're just building the houses without anything else, so they don't think it through.
Well, now, wait a minute. How do you know you're not going to get any more doctors and so on?
How do we know? Well, because we know it's not going to happen.
So you're guessing based on previous experience of government inaction?
We haven't got a bus service to Sheffield, which is the biggest city near to us. We've got a train service, which is fairly adequate, but you generally stand upon the train. Now, you're going to have another 600 people come, 600 families move not far from us without any increase. They can't increase the rolling stock just like that. They're not going to suddenly take all the privatised bus companies back into nationalisation and say you've got to provide services because of. It doesn't happen. Now, my plan
but if there are 600 more people want to take that route, then you think that a private enterprise would cater to that demand if it's there.
In the real world, you're lucky if you can get a bus. And over Christmas, there'll be a skeleton service, there'll be a Sunday service.
Yeah.
This is the real world, not some fantasy world in London.
But who wants to go to Sheffield at Christmas?
Sorry?
There can't be anybody, even in Worksop, that wants to go to Sheffield for Christmas. Why would you want to do that?
Oh, because it's a nice place. Anyway, I've got the plan. Let's build on all the green belt in the Cotswolds, in Buckinghamshire, near where Theresa May lives, and David Cameron in Whitney. Let's build near the celebrities, the rich people, because there's lots of green belt there. There's lots of land. We'll overrule the planning laws.
Yeah, but that would imply that everybody is going to have to move from where they are, where they want to live, in beautiful places like Nottinghamshire, David, to places that they don't want to live just because there's a house there. Why can't we build houses where people want them and need them?
Well, I'd like to live in Buckinghamshire and Cotswolds. They're lovely places. I'd love to live there.
Well, not after you've concreted them all over, they won't be.
But that's what you're going to do with the North. What they want to do is build and build and build in the North, but not where they live.
Don't be daft, lad. They want to put houses where people need houses.
Why are you assuming they need them in the North and not in the South?
You've just told me they're building 600 right where you live.
Every local authority has been told it's got to bump up its housing stock.
Right, well, why?
Because they want more houses. Because they
But
think
why?
Because they think we need more people here who want to rent.
No, they're building more houses because there's a lack of houses.
Right. Why is there just a lack of housing in the north? Why isn't there a lack of housing?
No, there isn't just a lack of housing in the north. There's a lack of housing. I'm sure there are areas that have sufficient. So let's not get into that. But more or less, everywhere is suffering from a lack of housing.
Yeah. But it's a pound to a penny. They'll not be building in the rich areas where all the celebrities live, where the houses cost about £1 million. I guarantee.
Well, the reason for that, David, is because land is too expensive in areas where houses cost £1 million. What you're after is, are we talking about government-built houses or privately built houses for private sale?
Well, this nonsense that there's what's called affordable housing.
Yeah.
Is absolute planet Zog. A lot of young people can't even afford the 10% deposit. They need affordable housing. Is not affordable for first-time buyers. What they really need is more social housing because they can rent that.
Right. Now, it would be probably cheaper to build houses where other houses don't cost £1 million each.
Of course it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So
very convenient.
your idea of building where celebrities live is a bit of a non-starter because the government would have to spend vast amounts just to buy the land. Then what about the houses that go on them?
No, if they compulsory purchase them at their decision, their price.
So we're going to go into Jimmy Tarbuck's garden and sequestrate half of it and build some houses on it. Is that your plan?
Well, no, we're looking at the Greenbelt nearby. Why should the celebrities and the rich people get away with the increase in numbers? Why are you defending rich people and celebrities?
What the hell are you talking about with the rich people and the celebrities? You just mean people who live in the South? Or are you just deliberate, or are you specifically picking on people who are on television?
No, the MPs and celebrities and people who are generally millionaires live in quiet country villages. I went through.
Well, of course. I mean, if you were a millionaire, you wouldn't choose to live in, I don't know, Worksop, for instance.
Yeah, but it's very convenient to criticise working class people who don't want an increase in the pressures on the infrastructure, but they don't feel the pressures of the increase, and that's so. It's like they're criticising us because we're saying, well, we can't cope with what we've got. But they don't feel it, do they?
No, you're posing a problem. You're inventing a problem and then arguing against it. Your suggestion is that the government, if they are building 600 houses, will not build extra roads. They won't build extra transport. They won't make provisions for shops and for dentists and for hospitals and doctors and schools and all the rest of it. But that's presupposing the worst possible outcome. It would seem to be, if the government is actually going to do that, then they shouldn't be in government. But I doubt that that's the plan.
Yeah. Back in the, I live in the real world.
God. No, you're not. You're not living in the real world, David. You're inventing the worst possible outcome.
Because people cannot even get to work today. The public transport system is a joke.
People can't get to work.
Work 4 weeks for a doctor's appointment. The social services are under masses of pressure. Everybody is under masses of pressure and stress, and they can't cope with things as they are. So,
So not having a house would make it better?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying your starting line was that a Conservative MP was criticising people over 60 because they don't want extra house building where they live. My starting line is, okay, well, let's these people who live in the rich areas say, well, we'll have some extra houses where we live.
They're going to be building houses everywhere. There's more houses being built in London than the rest of the than any other single area.
Yeah, and you know what's happening? They're being snapped up by Chinese industrialists.
Well,
they're not even living in
that
them.
Part is true.
So why don't
you finally hit on a truth there, David? I think quit while you're ahead. Stella says, doesn't Sajid Javid realise that we over 60s have children and grandchildren and are very aware and concerned for them in the housing situation? Yes, but that doesn't negate the argument that he's given that is sort of more general than that people over 60 who have bought their own house, principally because they bought it when they were given away a house free with 6 gallons of petrol. Now they want to stop all building anywhere near them. And that's the problem with the housing, the lack of housing. It's the NIMBY problem. Not in my backyard. So he's the community secretary. He's claimed that older people had no understanding of the problems and were living in a different world. Well, they are living in a different world to the young. I mean, I know that people over the age of 60 think that they're hard done by. But just wait till the generation who are just coming up, wait till they're in their 60s, and what current OAPs are experiencing will seem like blooming heaven by comparison. Because they're not going to own their own home, and they're not going to have any pensions. The problems that are being stored up for the near future are, I don't know why anybody would want to run this country. It's almost like a game of pass the parcel. You might get out of number 10 without it all blowing up, but the odds are shortening by the day. So this Sajid Javid said that it was time to deliver moral justice for the young and warned older people that they would not be permitted to stand in the way of a massive house-building drive. And the older people said, "Oh, yes, we will." I think young people, apart from anything else, young people, if you've taken anything away from Brexit or this or the way that the government is going, you've got to vote. Now, I know that you did your bit during the day of the last referendum, or the Brexit referendum rather, not the day of the previous election. But you have to convince a ruling party that you are going to continue to vote. Otherwise, they will continue to ignore you, as has been the case. Sajid Javid says, I still hear from those who say that there isn't a problem with housing, that affordability is only a problem for millennials that spend too much on nights out and smashed avocados. What's a smashed avocado? Would you buy them pre-smashed for your convenience? What's that then? I bet my glamorous assistant knows what a smashed avocado is. What's that?
Oh, sorry, I've been on a very important call.
Oh, I bet you have. What's a smashed avocado?
Say again.
A smashed avocado. What's that?
Oh, guacamole.
Guacamole?
Yeah.
Right. Is that it?
Yeah, you put a bit of onion in guacamole sometimes, but...
Okay, I'll bring the smashed avocados. You bring the chips. How does that sound? Beer's on the company.
He is a very sick and dangerous man.
Well, if only I'd been sick enough to claim sickness benefit. Did you hear that story? 75,000 people who claimed sickness benefits may have been underpaid between 2012 and 2015. The mistakes were made when incapacity benefit was replaced by unemployment and support allowance. The government may need to repay each person £17,000. Does anybody in government have any idea what they're doing?
No.
Just checking. So anyway, back with this Sajid Javid outburst, as it will probably be reported in the papers, is saying that the housing problem in this country is essentially caused by NIMBYism. It's older people who've already paid off their mortgage who don't want any houses built round them. Not round my way. Who's calling Muswell Hill? Michael.
Oh, hi. How are you, Nick?
Good, thanks.
Good. Well, I'm not quite 60, but I'm getting there, and I have to say I am quietly furious with, the older generation and in terms of how we've treated young people. I mean, we treat them really badly. We're happy for them to, leave third-level education with debts of £50,000.
Yeah.
We're happy to ignore the environmental disaster that we're leaving them as a legacy.
Yep.
And we're happy with the fact that they can't have steady employment, or it's much more difficult. And we're happy with the fact that none of these young people, unless they've got the bank of mummy and daddy, can afford to live. in the southeast of England in particular. And we seem comfortable with that.
Yeah,
and I think
it's I'm all right, Jack-ism.
It's absolutely, and it is outrageous, Nick. I mean, I'm an architect, and I've worked in this industry over here for over 30 years. And yeah, we all clamour we need houses, but I don't want them in my street.
Yeah.
I see it every single week. People do not like change. They're happy with what they got, and they do not think beyond their own, immediate realities. And you know, I'm going to get technical and boringly in it, but the fundamental problem we have is not the planning officers that we have, who are generally intelligent and educated about our planning policies, but it's the councillors, who are essentially politicians, who sit on planning committees and who listen to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who complain that they do not want a development in their area. And those politicians who make the decisions about planning will vote with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because they're the people who vote them in. And that's fundamentally the problem with our system.
Well, I think that interwoven within that is the politicians have it in their minds that young people don't vote, and so they pay undue attention to what older people want.
No, I absolutely, Nick. I so agree with you, and I won't go into the details of it, but we had a application up last night. Thankfully, it got through. But funnily enough, the merits of the scheme, whether it was good or bad, and people may disagree with that, but what happened last night is what happens every single time, or pretty much every single time, is it splits down political party lines. So you get the Tories voting one way, and the Labour voting the other way. Now, you would think if those politicians were assessing a scheme on its merits, you would probably get politicians voting in a mixed way, but they nearly always vote along party political lines. And actually...
Well, can you tell us what those lines are?
Well, you know, it actually depends on where you are and which particular part of the country, you know, and which happens to be the party in power. I mean, in Oxford in particular, I think it's currently led by Labour. And, you know, they've got a very particular hard line on affordable housing, which I agree with. But you've got to create a balance here, because if your aspirations for affordable housing are too extreme, then what happens, Nick, is that schemes don't come forward to be developed because they are looking for, for too much. The particular scheme we had last night was voted against by all the Conservatives, because there were a number of residents who were well connected with the Conservative councillors, and they had their ear, and they decided that they weren't going to support the particular policy. So all the Tories voted one way, and all the Labour politicians voted the other way.
Now, you told me that you're an architect. Now,
I am, yeah.
This scheme that you had was for multiple houses? It wasn't just for somebody who wanted a kitchen return, was it?
No, it was for 6 houses.
Right, okay.
In London. You know, so it was 6 nice houses. We worked very closely with the council to develop them. You know, we had a recommendation for approval, but, you know, the Tories on the, and it could have been the Labour, but in this particular case it was Tories, decided they weren't going to support it, so every single one of them did. Now, I find it extraordinary that it always seems to split down party lines if you're actually talking about the merits or otherwise.
Well, I find it extraordinary that you actually found enough land to build 6 houses on. I mean, I know that in the big building firms can buy up office blocks and knock them down and put, you know, beautiful executive flatlets and sell them directly to the Chinese. I know that they can do that because they've got the money. But when you're talking about a small development like you're describing, isn't finding land difficult?
It is difficult, but Nick, you know, we genuinely London is really low density. You know, they all talk about, oh, we've got too many people here. You know, I was walking through the streets of Kensington, and there are Victorian mansion blocks, Nick, that are like 6 and 7 stories high, and people are delighted to live in them. They pay, well over £1.5 million to buy an apartment in a 6-story Victorian apartment block in Kensington. I have no problem with high-level living.
Well, yes, but I think the problem with high-level living is it's a money thing, isn't it? It doesn't seem to work for the lower end of the economic scale, but it does work for the higher end. Now, whether it's just that there's a lack of money being put into keeping up those old towers, but perhaps that's it. Perhaps it's the residents who don't care so much about their environment. Maybe their environment hasn't been cared for, so they care for it less. But there's no doubt, unless you want to correct me, I don't think there's any doubt that high-rise living doesn't seem to work for the lower end of the economic social scale, but it does work for rich people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Nick, when you think about that, that means that there can't be something inherently wrong with the typology of high living. If it works for if you're in New York, there's lots of high buildings, and they work for everybody. So there's essentially nothing wrong with the building typology.
But you wouldn't surely, well, maybe you would. I'll find out. I'll ask. You wouldn't, would you? Think that London should become high density like Manhattan, for instance?
I think it's an absolute disgrace that we ignore the fact that young people cannot find a place to live in London. They can't afford that, but that is much more important. That's the biggest question. Are we happy that young people can't afford to live somewhere, that they have to rent somewhere? It's an absolute disgrace.
Now,
we have to do something about it.
Right, okay, so there's two things that you could do about it. One is to have us all live shoulder to shoulder, hugger-mugger, and the only way is up. Or the alternative is to increase or to make better transport. Now, I know that there's a couple of schemes that are going on at the moment that are going to radically change how Londoners get about the place. But if, for instance, you're familiar with Elon Musk in America, and he's talking about the Hyperloop, which is a maglev train buried in tubes underground. Now, it sounds very science fiction, but then so does everything that he does sound like the future. But it is possible, and the technology is there, and you could get from London to Glasgow, for instance, in about 30 minutes flat. If we could harness that kind of technology, and you could travel the length of the country in half an hour, that means you could commute to London from anywhere, which means that anywhere is a possible location for you to live. So there is two ways to tackle the problem, and one of them is up, which makes for which makes for a city that's less scaled for the human. I mean, there's nothing human-sized about Manhattan, is there? It's not as pleasant a place to be as London, I'd suggest. Or we can spread out and stop being so protective of these so-called green spaces, many of which aren't actually that beautiful. They're just fields, and improve the transport.
Well, I think, as with everything, Nick, it's probably a bit of both. But personally, I don't know if you've ever been in Paddington. Are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I don't know if you've ever been in Paddington going in the wrong direction, when people are going home. It's sort of pretty manic. I'm not sure having increasing number of people who are in manic trying to catch the train is such a fantastic idea. Look, I say again, if you go down to Kensington and Chelsea, you can see a density where you've got Edwardian or Victorian buildings that are 5-6 stories high, and they're absolutely fabulous. Yet the majority of London is covered with 2-story buildings. We could double density overnight if we turn 2-story into 4-story, and they're very happy to live in those in Kensington. So why can't we do it elsewhere?
All right, good point. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Who do you think you're talking to?
John says, if Sajid Javid gets rid of all the old people, there'll be no one left to blame for whatever goes wrong in the future. Well, I don't think the plan is to get rid of the old people. I mean, we're not going to arm ourselves and give them a head start. This is not America. It's that old people are preventing housing from being built near them. as that last caller, who is an architect, was describing, the decision often comes down to political lines. It's short-termism. Again, it's what will do for the human race. If a council person is sitting with a proposal before him for 300 extra homes, and a lot of old people in the vicinity don't like that idea, they are more likely to vote, thinks that council person, than young people. So we'll ignore them and we'll just go for what is politically expedient in the short term. And thus you just don't get houses built in large enough numbers. I mean, it's not the reason that we haven't built enough houses, but it's one of the reasons. So Sajid Javid says that he hears from those who say that housing is not a problem. He says that affordability is only a problem for millennials that spend too much on nights out and smashed avocados. You know, because if the kids just cut down on their smashed avocado habit, they're bound to be able to afford a house. I'm on about 3 or 4 avocados a day now, man, but I can handle it. I'm just feeling a bit potassium rich at the moment, that's all. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Theresa May vowed to fix the broken housing market. So, problem solved, nothing to see here. She said it was her mission to build the homes that the country needs. And right enough, the number of new homes in England rose by 220,000 last year, if you can believe that, almost 250,000. Now, Germany, of course, has been building that amount every year since the Second World War. I think that's correct. And some years have gone by that we built none. Like a couple of thousand, that's it. That's why we've got a problem now. Short-termism. The bulk of them, or the biggest chunk, was in London, 40,000 new homes. And a caller that I was speaking to some while ago alluded to the point that I'm about to make. 40,000 new homes in London last year. And you may have seen that forest of cranes on London's skylines that have been putting up those 40,000 new homes. And it seemed to me that each and every one of them was an executive flatlet in a tower, priced at £1 million for a studio, and sold off-plan to Malaysians and Saudis. They're not for people to live in. They won't solve the housing crisis. It's for the international criminal super-rich to launder their money, or for property funds to buy in a safe haven, or for the rich to diversify their assets. They're not for people to live in. That's why they're so small, because they're not designed for people to live in. If you were a millionaire and you could afford, £3-4 million for a 2-bedroom flat, you wouldn't buy one. You'd have to be off your chump. If you've got that kind of money, do you actually want to live in a living room that's the size of a kitchen, with a kitchen in it? Of course not. With a kitchen in it, and you can see straight into your living room from the street. There's one curvy block of flats that's gone up in just by the river there, just on the north side, opposite MI5. If you walk along the street, your eye level is in their living room. The people on the first habitable floor. Why would anybody want to live there? I would bet that nobody who bought that flat will ever live there. It's a rental. And I would further bet that they don't live in this country, the people who bought that flat. I would further bet that they never actually saw that flat before they bought it. They're not building flats in London for people to live in. They're investment opportunities for foreigners. It's an absolute disgrace. And London's skyline has been ruined forever. We'll never get that back. It's like... I don't know. You look down London's river from the West End. You look west, and that view is forever ruined. I mean, okay, it was never a great skyline, but now it could be Bangkok or Malaysia. It could be anywhere. That's one of my. I should have asked that architect about this. But the one thing that seems to be uniform about those tall blocks of executive flatlets is that they have absolutely no artistic merit whatsoever. Home ownership has apparently fallen to a 30-year low in this country. And the average age of a first-time buyer has risen to 32. 32 before you get to move out your parents' place. And after the age of, 14? It's a nightmare living with your parents. Am I right? Unless you're listening to this, Mum, in which case, please disregard everything I've said on this matter. No, there's at some point you should be able to move out. Unless you're Italian, in which case, never move out. But that's that's an Italian thing, and a Greek thing, and a Spanish thing, and everywhere but here, actually. So home ownership now a 30-year low, but the Chancellor is still refusing to release the purse strings to build what they refer to as affordable homes. Still not releasing the purse strings.
No!
Affordable homes. That's not what they're going to be building, and nor will they be building, and fans of history will remember these, council homes. You remember council homes, don't you?
No.
In an interview on Wednesday, he acknowledged the need to increase house building, but warned that there was no silver bullet to achieve it. So in other words, we've got to do it, but we can't do it. You know, if New Homes could vote for the government in Parliament, then I think the current rate is about £1 billion per 10 votes. So if Homes could vote, they'd get built. They'd free up a lot of money, but they can't, so there's no magic money tree for that.
Fabulous.
And the Chancellor rejected Javid's demand for £50 billion to fund a massive building drive. He's expected to fund more modest measures, including a stamp duty holiday for first-time buyers. Which is akin to doing nothing at all. A stamp duty, not wiping out stamp duty, but giving them a stamp duty holiday for first-time buyers. What difference is that going to make? I'll say it again. Politicians will not act in the best interests of young people until they get it in their mind that young people go out and vote in large numbers. Now, regardless of what the current position is, like I said with Brexit, they did go out. I think it was like over 60% of young people went out to vote. But politicians still have it in their mind, but, through years and years of experience, that young people just don't bother going out to vote. So you know what? Politicians don't bother with young people. So Sajid Javid said that a generation of young people was crying out for help with housing. He said that Britain was in danger of creating a rootless generation that would reach retirement with no property to call their own, and pension pots that haven't been filled because so much of their income has gone on rent. And you know what? He's right. And this should be sending warning bells ringing in Tory high command.
Warning! Warning!
Rootless adults with no homes or pensions don't vote Tory. That old formula of voting Labour when you're young and voting Tory when you have enough wealth to want it protected in middle age is broken now. Because in the future, those of middle age won't have any wealth. They won't have a house because they never bought one in the first place. And they won't have a pension because, there went pensions. I say it should set bells ringing in Tory high command, but then, it's a long-term problem, and politicians don't act for the long-term benefit if they think it might cost them in the short term. And it's true the number of new homes in England rose by 220,000 last year. But it's short of the government's 250,000 target, which experts say is needed just to keep up with demand. So they're short even by building 220,000. And an Oxford University professor called Danny Dorling said that these homes will not solve the problems. It's one extra home for every 250 people. But, he is an Oxford professor and therefore probably an expert, and we are no longer interested in the opinions of experts.
Correct.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
We throw away enough plastic to fill 1,000 Albert Halls every year. God, can that be true? You know, there's some things that I'll get back to what we were talking about in just a minute. I know there's some people who want to talk to me about this, but there's some things that we can do right now. And one of the things is there's some types of plastic that are you cannot recycle. Some of them you can't recycle because they're all melded together with other materials. You know, there'll be plastic and cardboard and foil and so on. I'm thinking about specifically a tube of crisp-like products. And there's many other things that they sort of meld plastic into other materials to make it impossible to recycle. We should refuse to buy those products. I mean, there's no end of other products that are, identical or easily swappable. Just choose them. It's down to us. We have the power. Another thing is black plastic trays for food. Now, you might not have noticed that a lot of food comes in a black plastic tray. And that's impossible to recycle. Well, it's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult because apparently recycling machines don't recognise black. They can't see it. Now, food manufacturers know that, and they don't care. They use it anyway because they think that we prefer it. They think that given a choice between something on any other coloured plastic, like white or clear, we will go for a food, be it mushrooms or a pre-packed, ready-made food, whatever. We will go for the one in the black plastic because, I don't know, they think that we prefer it. Well, we should tell them otherwise. For the benefit of ourselves, for the benefit of the planet. Stop using black plastic trays for food. If we stop buying them, they'd stop making them next week. And that's true. You know, the internet is, so far, I'm not that impressed. Not really. It's ruined the high street, thanks to you-know-who, that don't pay taxes. In fact, it's taken a lot of businesses that used to pay taxes and used to provide employment, and it's just sucked those industries dry. The money used to get spread out in retail, for instance. It used to get spread out in your high street with what the Americans call mom and pop shops, family-run businesses who would toil away, and they'd feel, a great pride in their work, and they'd pay their taxes. Well, all of that's been swept away completely by the internet giants who don't pay their taxes. So all of that money is now lost, and that's why poor dopes like you and me who do pay taxes have to pay more and more and more and get less and less and less, because all the money that used to swirl about the economy has just been drained away to some offshore account in Panama or the Cayman Islands, or wherever it might be. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, plastic. The internet can be used for positive things. So far, not much. But if the message went round, stop buying black plastic, and it just caught on and went viral, and everybody thought, hey, you know what? Yeah, okay, I'm going to not buy black plastic. I'm just going to choose something else that's, that's more or less the same, that's not in black plastic, for the benefit of the planet that we're living on. The internet can be used for that. It can be used to bring down giant corporations. Corporations that are worth billions and billions and billions of pounds. All the human race has to do is to read it on the internet and think, you know what, enough. These people aren't working for our benefit. They're bleeding us all dry, and they're not contributing anything back. So, and they appear to be evil people, even though they suggest otherwise, because they don't wear suits to work and they've got beards. Let's get rid of them, or let's teach them a lesson. All we have to do is withdraw our support and our goodwill, and they will fold, regardless of who they are. Within the month, we can do it. We have the power, and we have the tool now at our disposal, the internet, in order to pass the message on. Just pass it on. Stop buying things in black plastic trays, for instance. Anyway, back to this. Housing. Chigwell. Hello, Andrew.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Yes, speaking on behalf of NIMBYs. We came to Chigwell And it's 8 o'clock in the morning. You could get straight in towards the city, and it took maybe 15 minutes to get to Main Road towards the city. Now that same journey takes an hour and a half.
Why? When did it take 15 minutes?
When we moved in the 70s.
Oh, right. So when people didn't have cars. Yeah,
long time ago. The only difference is they started to build houses. However, they forgot to build the roads. When I went to school in the area, there were 30 people in the class. Now the average goes up to 50. Now the main point that I'm making is, instead of just looking, as we always seem to do, at the houses, why can't we look at building towns completely separate from where we are at the moment, use technology, for example, high-speed trains, etc., etc., so everything is bought together, so it's easy to get in and out of London, have hospitals, have all the infrastructure put in place, have a planned city like Manhattan was, that everyone is happy. The original people that have, such as us, have our own, have what we originally wanted, and the new people have a beautiful own town or city that is purpose-built for normal people.
Normal people?
Normal people.
Right.
Not the ultra-rich, not...
I see.
Not these multi-million-pound rabbit hutches.
Yeah.
That we can, that it is a nice town, but...
Okay, so your plan would be not to increase density, it would be to spread out.
Yes, to spread out on the land which is not used, as you say, just the fields, like Milton Keynes was, except a better plan.
Yeah.
A nicer town. And
the problem with that, though, I mean, there are many problems with that, but one of them is you can only spread out. I mean, I know there's only 2% of the country is actually built on. It's really quite extraordinarily small percentage, much smaller than you would think. But if we start to spread out, then that percentage will go up dramatically, and what used to be a green and pleasant land will become concreted over.
Well, you're talking about extremes there. But if we put a Milton Keynes that was well planned in the middle of an area that is not being used, you can have hundreds of thousands of residential areas with businesses in areas that are peaceful, calm, and that the youngsters will have something to keep for themselves, to build and live for themselves, and have a pleasant area, and also can become NIMBYs.
They can aspire to become NIMBYs just like their old dad.
Exactly.
Right.
In their own comfort, without living in these little squalid 2x4 so-called rabbit houses that are really disgusting and really are not really what I would say fit for purpose of what was offered when we were growing up.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were far fewer people around when you were growing up, and I know this is an unpleasant and unseemly thought, but people just can't stop having sex with each other.
Disgusting.
And the result is lots more babies. And that's why there are vast or larger numbers of pupils in schools, because the number of pupils went up, but the number of schools didn't.
Exactly what I'm referring to. That you are talking about having loads of more homes.
Yes, but surely it'd be better to use the infrastructure and the facilities that already exist and build near to those roads and the hospitals and the schools and so on, and increase their number, but within a community that already exists, rather than perpetually spreading out this kind of grey concrete haze that just reaches to the horizon.
But what do you do about, I live in Chigwell. If you leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, just to go a mile and a half up the road to get onto the main road, like to go to the city, it can take an hour to travel that little distance because of those new people
because,
that have come into
because
the area.
everybody wants to drive their own car. Well, I think the answer to that is people should be prevented from driving their own cars eventually. What we need is an integrated public transport system that's much, much better than the one that we have at the moment. Now, AI, robot cars, may provide some, at least some answer to that problem. If people just got their head around not owning a car and using it like they use water and electricity. You don't own it. You sort of buy it when you need it.
But that is still adding. That still requires more roads in the same area, which they're not even thinking about doing. It still requires more traffic. More on the same area that we've got.
Well, yes, but you know, people who live in London, which is a higher density than Chigwell, they don't tend to drive around much. They tend to take public transport because it's just easier and it's quicker, and it's cheaper. So maybe maybe I would suggest that the answer is less just spreading out and is more concentrating people in more higher density areas and improving the public transport to get them where they need to be.
So in other words, push them into little small areas that they live in, little 10 by 10 cubicles.
Yeah.
That they have no area to spread out. They have to travel at least 10 feet to get to their door, and another 10 feet to get to their homes.
Yeah, and their living rooms are so small that they don't need a remote control to switch their TV. They can just lean across the room and turn the TV by hand manually.
Is that something really that younger people would want to look forward to?
No, I don't think so. But that's the future, Andrew, because there's too many people. There's no getting around it. There's too many. There's not too many is debatable, but there are more of us than can spread out like we used to. There's just no getting around it. I bet you're part of the problem, Andrew. Do you have any children?
No.
Like I said, congratulations. Thanks for your assistance in that regard. Thanks.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Simon says, London flats need to be built high, as once climate change comes, the penthouse balcony can be used to tie up your boat. There's handy. Norwood. Hello, Barry.
Hello there. Good morning.
Hello there.
Hi there. I don't know who reprogrammed Theresa May, but yeah, good luck. I don't see her fixing the problem that her government has effectively exacerbated, though. This housing market situation. When you've got a market for something, it suits private developers not to build as many houses as they could do because it keeps the price high. Right now, Sajid Javid says he wants to, allow them to build more houses. These same private developers, who are obviously going to do exactly the same thing and maintain their margins. Additionally, this government follows on from 7 years of Tory government, where they've argued vehemently that we should not build, we should not borrow to build houses. He's now coming out saying that he's going to borrow to build houses.
Sajid Javid. He says he wants 50 billion from the Chancellor, and the Chancellor, he say
no. Well, where's he going to get it from? That's what he's going to say. Look, we've got Brexit coming up. Where are we going to get the money? So the only way to do it is to borrow it. They've spent 7 years arguing against that. So it seems a bit disingenuous to now come out and care. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the Chancellor, it doesn't, in as much as he's not going to release that money, and has said that at most he will provide a stamp duty holiday for first-time buyers, which is not even on the same planet as addressing the problem.
And it's not even going to be first-time buyers that get a stamp duty holiday. It's going to be people who have already got money and are already capable who are going to get further.
I would not be surprised in the least if a stamp duty holiday actually just provided another fillip for the rich.
Yeah, well, that's all it's going to do. I mean, the thing is, it seems clear to me. I mean, they changed the definition of affordability when Boris Johnson was mayor. They built all these expensive houses. They've allowed private developers to build so many more expensive. Because remember, they had a ratio they were supposed to follow, weren't they?
Yeah, but yeah, new developments have to provide a certain amount of so-called affordable housing. But if most people couldn't afford it, then it's not affordable.
Exactly. So what we have is a situation of unobtainable housing. That's pretty much it. Plus, there's so much second home ownership that the only way that they can really resolve the issue is to look at dealing with the actual market position of houses. Do we continue to have a market in the same way? Do we allow prices to continue running away? Because every time you build a house, people are going to buy it. It's going to go into the market. It's going to be inflated by banks, and it will go through the whole process of being bought and sold many, many times over. And the value will then increase, or the price rather will increase. The value will stay the same, but the price will continue to go up, as it has been doing over the past 30 years. So the only way they can do it is to undo their own policies. And it's not going to happen, is it?
Well, it does seem that if they did solve the problem, if they did build enough houses to meet demand, then that would imply that the price of housing would go down, which is not in the bank's interest, because they've lent a lot of money on houses at what would be the old inflated price. So yes, they would be.
It wouldn't even help the buyer, because the previous buyers, they'll be then stuck in negative equity when house prices start coming down. And
it would be politically poison. Yeah.
Yeah. So none of it's going to happen. It's just all it is. It's just disingenuous talk to try and steal the votes that Labour have been obtaining. That is all it is. They've stolen another one of the Labour policies to try and repurpose it as their own, dress it up, call it something else like they did with the living wage, and pretend that they've done something. They're not going to. They're not going to be able to. So, and don't worry about the situation anyway, because we've got Brexit. There's going to be less people in the country. So,
I wouldn't count on that, Barry.
Oh, have you heard about Article 127?
Tell me about Article 127.
Okay, right. So we're currently part of the EU. The referendum said that we must leave the EU and its institutions, right? So we triggered Article 50 to remove ourselves from the EU. However, the single market, free trade, etc., is part of the EEA, which is not the EU. Different institution altogether, different body, right? And we are separate signatories to the EEA. In order to leave the EEA, with its single market and free trade and freedom of movement, in order to leave that, we need to issue notice under Article 127 of the EEA directives. And we haven't done that.
Right, so okay, so I do know what you're talking about now. So it's all null and void, and we're staying.
that's basically.
Again, I wouldn't count on that either, Barry. But I'm sorry. I hate to break the bad news to you, but no, that's not a firm foundation on which to wish for the future. But thanks a lot, mate. I still haven't got to this transaction fee, which okay, it's not a large amount of money that they charge me for this transaction fee, but it just grates on me. I'll come to that in a minute. Maybe you've experienced the evil that is the transaction fee. First of all, here's calling Farnham. Hello, Morris.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. I've been listening to your show like I normally do, and
like a normal person.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's one guy who was talking to you earlier on about the building houses in the north, not in the south.
Yes.
Well, I live in Farnham, and not far from where I live is a place called Dunsfold. They're building 3,000 houses there. There's another place called Borden. There's a building company, got 10 years' work there, building thousands of houses, so all that is out the window. But the thing is, that there was a scheme they had in Jersey many years ago that all the low stock price houses were only allowed to be bought by the locals, and all the high-priced houses can be bought by people from out of the place. But that the scheme there, that if you had £1 million, then it didn't mean to say that you're going to go and buy a smaller priced house.
Well, that makes sense. There's other. I don't know exactly what Switzerland do, but I think it's something of that order that you have to be a resident in Switzerland. You have to be a Swiss resident in order to buy a house there. Now that seems perfectly reasonable, because what has happened with the London market in particular, and if London may have reached its maximum capacity in this regard. Therefore, the international property market will start looking at Birmingham and Manchester and Edinburgh and so on, if indeed they haven't already started doing that. That these places are being built and the skyline is being ruined, but they aren't building them for anybody to live in. They're building them specifically to sell off-plan to foreign investors. So they're building homes right enough, but they're not actually suitable as homes.
Yeah, that's right. If you go like Farnham's a nice country town, but if you go through there's a lot of shops, and they've got a lot of empty rooms above them. So that wasn't just applied to Farnham, that would apply to anywhere.
Yeah.
So people like to live in the town. Why don't they bring out a scheme where they could take over all this empty accommodation above shops and turn them into flats, pay the landlord some good money he's earning, and someone's got somewhere to live. They won't have to have a car because they're living right in the middle of the town.
Well,
and also
you could say that in... go on.
You see all these big shopping places. They got vast car parks. Why don't they build on top of them?
Well, where are people going to park?
Car parks underneath, aren't they? But
when you say, by the way, going back to what you said earlier on, Dunsfold, they're building 3,000, I think you said, houses in Dunsfold.
3,000 houses down there.
Is that the airport, the airfield?
Yeah, it's an
That's
old
where
airfield.
Top Gear used to get filmed, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they don't have it there no more.
No.
And there's big place, big airfield, and they're building on it 3,000 houses. A lot of people are kicked up about it, but what can you do? It's a question of supply and demand, isn't it?
Well, it's not a lovely area. I mean, all I know is what I used to watch, or used to see them like zooming about it on Top Gear. I wouldn't call it an area of outstanding natural beauty. So I think it's what they call a brownfield site, isn't it? It's already been built on, but it's not actually being used for anything much at the moment. So that seems like an ideal location. So a disused airport, 'cause it's flat, apart from anything else. An ideal area to build, yeah. And so this idea that, and Morris, who I was just talking to, was referring to a caller that I had on ages ago now, who was bemoaning the fact that it's that houses aren't being built in the south, where he said the rich and celebrities live. And that's just patently not true, because the demand is for houses in the south, because that's where young people want to live. By and large, young people do not want to live in the wilds of Sussex or Surrey or Northamptonshire or any of these people. They are drawn like sirens to the excitement of the bright lights. It's where the money is. And so naturally, we need more houses in the southeast. The problem is that if you keep spreading out, then there won't be any green anymore. We should lose our inhibition for building on areas that are described as the green belt, because not all of the green belt is that lovely, let's be honest. But we don't want to lose all of it. So it's probably better to go, and I hate to say it actually, but up, as opposed to out. Otherwise, if you just take it to its natural conclusion, then the entire country will be concreted over. And who would want that? Apart from the manufacturers of concrete.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Excellent work by our superb newsreader Zora Suleiman in keeping a straight face during the last two stories of that bulletin, by the way. And they were... After a public vote, 2 new gritters in Doncaster are going to be called David Plowie and Gritsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Anti-Slip Machine. How did she not laugh when she said that? Gritsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Anti-Slip Machine. 2 others have already been named Gritney Spears and Usain Salt. And then she topped it with the story of US officials have apologised after one of its Navy pilots used his jet to draw obscene pictures in the sky over Washington. Photos appeared on social media showing a giant phallus in the clouds. I think that pilot meant that message for you, Donny.
Like to punch him in the face.
Yeah, America's Federal Aviation Administration, which regulates civil aviation, said they were unable to do anything as they can't police morality. Yeah, but Vice President Mike Pence, he was out there trying to shoot at clouds because Jesus told him to. Langley. Hello, Marcel.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. I just wanted to echo some comments that have recently been said, but in relation to that chap who called just before 11:30 with regards to not building, down south.
Where the celebrities live.
Mm-hmm. I live in South Buckinghamshire, near to Beaconsfield and Gerrards Cross, where a lot of these so-called celebrities do live, and that guy was complaining about 600 houses being built. Well, they are proposing 10,000 homes here.
Wow.
A mixture of, one-bedroom flats and social housing up to large properties with half-acre gardens. A real mixture trying to attract, all sorts of people. And I suppose the only kind of bad thing is that they're looking to do it in the green belt, which is not great. But it is needed so badly, though.
Now, when you say green belt, people have wistful imaginings of, this bucolic scenery, and but I would imagine it's not actually like that. Is it just fairly ordinary fields?
It's a mixture. Some of it's farms, some of it is actual woods, but a lot of it is kind of almost like mini industrial estates that are in like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like tucked away within woods and stuff where they don't actually bother anyone.
Yes.
But there's a mixture of that. But I'm in my 30s and I look at myself and I look at all my friends and I think it's just crazy, And if we do build 10,000 more homes, prices have got to, if anything, stabilise or hopefully go down a bit just because of supply and demand.
Exactly. So are they building as an adjunct to a town that already exists, or are they creating an entirely new one?
They are extending some parts that are, if you like, smaller villages. They are looking to then create whole new villages as well. A couple of parts they are attaching onto existing places, but nothing onto anything major. But they are very close to Langley.
And are they building the required infrastructure as well? I mean, talking about schools and hospitals and doctors and roads and all the rest of it.
Absolutely. Actually, to be fair to them, I can't give you the exact figures, but it's something like they're also going to put in a large number of primary schools and a good number of secondary schools as well. They're looking to do, more like town halls for public facilities if you want to use them. They're looking to put in local shops. They're looking to put in new major roads. They're really looking to change the roads and put a lot more major roads in, which is great. They're doing leisure and sports facilities and what have you. So.
Well, that all sounds very good. And what do the locals think?
Absolutely not. We don't want it.
Right.
Well, that's South Bucks saying that, though. They've said that very publicly on their website.
Who have?
South Bucks Council.
The council, right.
Yeah.
Presumably they are, not presumably, let me guess. They're a Conservative council.
Predominantly, yes, especially around that neck of South Bucks. But they say they want to do all their building, because there are government figures to say they have to build, a certain amount of houses every year and what have you, within your local plan. And South Bucks are saying, well, we are going to do all of our housing around Aylesbury. And it's Slough Borough Council who's trying to push this through, even though it's not in their own district. But a lot of it is immediately next door to it. So it's not like they're trying to, create a big island in the middle of South Bucks. They're just looking to extend it a bit.
Well, if it takes the eye off Slough, then maybe it would be a good thing.
Absolutely, because I think there's a lot of people who work in Slough. There's some big high-end jobs. We've got, there's a lot of international headquarters in Slough. Nobody lives in Slough, though, who's got those big jobs. everyone moves out. You know, everyone drives in from Gerrards Cross and from Windsor, from Maidenhead.
Well, I think that may be about to change, if it hasn't changed, or if indeed it hasn't changed already, with the Crossrail that's coming through, on which Slough is a stop. And it's one of the first stops out of central London that is still relatively cheap as far as the property goes. So I think that the only way is up for Slough.
And, well, to be honest with you, this bit isn't so much closer to Slough. It's more closer to Langley Station, which is one station in from...
well, even better.
From Slough.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, the way you describe it, it almost seems as though someone has a plan.
Yeah, Slough Borough Council. But if it was to happen, it would be great for the area, I think, and for people within their 20s and 30s to build, you know, whatever it's going to be, 4,000 one-bedroom flats and two-bedroom flats. I can see that's only a good thing, really.
Yeah, well, better than living at home with your parents when you're in your 30s.
Absolutely.
Exactly. All right, thanks a lot, Marcel. Don't let me forget this transaction fee thing. I want to bellyache about that before I leave.
Stop whining.
Here is West Hampstead. Mark.
Hi. 89% of this country is greenfield, and there's only 14% which is nature reserves. 60% is just flat fields which were agriculturalized 400 years ago. I've got a proposal. I've got 5 acres. I'm a seasoned developer. If you Google plot of gold, you'll see my biggest success, which I paid £1,000 for some land, and today it's worth 14 million. I've got 5 acres of a brownfield site. I'm willing to sign it over to LBC. And LBC can do their own little planning experiment to show how prejudiced, how ridiculous the NIMBYs are, how bureaucratic, how corrupt even, and how ridiculous when you put a development in. And we'll go for social housing, we'll go for care homes. We tried 10 years ago to go for care homes on it. It's a brownfield site, never been greenfield since 1840. And what you can do is every few months you can keep revisiting this patch. You can use this to bash the planning and the government and everything, and you've got experimental, and this will expose all the things that's wrong with this country.
Well, let's back up. Just back up a second. So you've got 5 acres, and you've been trying, as a developer, you've been trying to build on those 5 acres, and the 5 acres are currently farming land.
No, it's never been agriculture since 1840. It's got roads, it's got buildings, it's a brownfield site.
Oh, okay. So what's the problem then? How are they? Why are they refusing?
Find a way of rejecting you. The woman who came from London said, "Oh, it's green coloured, so it must be green." And then there's a big. Honestly, I tape recorded her. I bugged her. And then basically, there's a fence which belongs to the country estate. What it is a big mansion in some trees. This is the lodge on the road, and the fence is still there, leading up to the mansion with buildings and old electricity, water, stable blocks, outbuildings, etc. And it's a brownfield site, and it's derelict. It's never been used since 1840. I paid a fortune for it.
But what is that? Why do they refuse? What is their reason?
Because I'm a local boy. It's my hometown up in Cumbria, and they just don't like it. But they find a way. They found a rare primrose, and they were trying to. There was the local parish councilwoman allegedly said that somebody introduced the great crested newt.
Okay, but in your opinion, why are they refusing it?
These are the reasons they can reject it for rare primrose. They can
but that's not the implication of this call is not that is why they're rejecting it. They're not nature lovers.
The country hasn't got an appetite to admit there's a housing problem, and it's a bit of a conspiracy to keep the prices high. If you bring the 4.4 million homes which we need now into this country, the prices will drop because there's no demand anymore. We've got all the housing we need. And the average Conservative voter needs their equity to stay high. I'm part of it. I bought this when I was 22.
Yeah.
But why don't LBC do a project, and I'll sign it over, and you guys every few months with the LBC development. What's going on this week?
Well, let's not involve LBC in it. Just sign it over to me, Mark, and I'll do my very best. How does that sound?
Well, we tried 10 years ago to get a 70-bed care home on 1 acre of it, and by the time I get planning, I'll need a bloody care home probably. I'm 53 now. So I'm booking my place already. But I just thought it'd be, I've talked to your producers before about this, and do the LBC experiment, and for once and for all, on radio every few days, every few weeks, you'll see what the prejudice is. And there's no good reason to refuse it, because the government is saying, use all the brownfield sites first. Now, down the field, which is a green field, they've just built a garden centre the size of Chelsea football stadium. I reckon money's changing hands, and I've got to be careful.
Well, the planning system in this country seems to be, at the very least, open to the possibility of corruption. I mean, it does occur to me that, I question why some buildings in London were given the go-ahead, being as how they are so hideously ugly and obviously not built for local residents, because the units within them are too small.
Well, there's lots of buildings getting done now on Greenbelt, but brownfield sites are still getting rejected, and we got rejected 10 years ago.
Well, maybe they just don't like you.
Well, they probably don't, because I made there's headlines in Guildford because I did one of the biggest...
Well, maybe you don't want to identify yourself quite that clearly. But I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that your new development is ready for the next millennium. How does that sound? Thanks, Mark.
God, we're running late!
Here's calling Bexley. Rita?
Morning.
Rita?
Yes, Nick.
How you doing?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to your last caller. Was it the developer?
Oh, yes.
5 acres?
Mm-hmm.
There's a chap in Ashford in Kent, Lenny, who has got a very similar problem. I think he's got even more than 5 acres. And he's really wanted to provide genuinely affordable housing. He wasn't allowed to.
Now, what do you mean by genuinely affordable?
Well, I think one of your callers called it unaffordable housing.
Well, affordable housing seems to me to be unaffordable housing. The government's definition of affordable housing is 80%, like if it's going to be renting, 80% of the average local market rent, which is... That's still too much. It's just way too much. That's not affordable. That's unaffordable.
Well, thank God, the baby boomers didn't have this hell, this conundrum and this paradoxical, completely unreasonable situation where, why are the baby boomers some of them might be to blame, Nick.
Well, it's that entire generation.
All of them to blame.
Well, they may be to blame by their actions
alive, you mean?
Or inactions. I mean, this is what Sajid Javid was saying. I think the idea is basically that they all... I'm part of that not that I actually made that... because I stupidly rented for about 10 years while property just went through the roof. Like an idiot. But Sajid Javid is basically saying that people baby boomers went over the drawbridge and then pulled it up so that nobody else would be able to follow them.
How does he work that out?
Well, essentially, that they're saying, we like our house and we like our garden and we don't want any, and we understand that people need houses and gardens, but we don't want any built anywhere near us.
It's a bit of hollyhocks, really.
What does that mean?
Just, I think they're clutching at straws, and it's a divide and rule sort of maxim where, if, for example, here in Bexley, it might as well be called geriatric land because there isn't social housing being built. The social housing that was here, there were several large houses that were for elderly under housing associations or ex-council. And those people have been cleaned out. I know almshouses in Lewisham where the people, beautiful, really set in very beautiful large grounds. And that's going to be turned into ordinary housing for rent.
Yes, and how do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings because... I'm not sure that building unaffordable housing, because these will be at high rent, market rent, when they're refurbished. So the purpose of those almshouses, like there's some at Dartford that have been given over to Mind, near the courthouses in Dartford, and they're the most enchanting old, ancient, simple houses.
Well, it sounds a delight.
Yeah, but we don't get a choice. Come on, they can blame the baby boomers all they like.
But
Not
that's
all baby boomers.
Yeah,
baby boomers come in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, of course they do, but that's the essence of Sajid Javid's argument, is that if you had a choice, and by you I don't mean you personally, I mean if the people of 60 plus, the comfortable OAPs in your area had a choice about building new homes in that area or keeping everything the way it is, I would wager that they would want to keep everything the way it is. That's the problem. NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
But I think it's actually the government that wants the status quo that they've created, that they've manufactured and engineered to stay as it is, and they want to call the shots. So, by diverting attention, but with all these crass statements, it's not only insensitive, there may be a certain element of truth in what they say, but it's by no means the bigger picture, is it? And if you confuse the issues enough, I think you get what you have now, because the
what is it that you're alluding to, though? What is the bigger picture?
Well, I was just going to mention about the hospitals at Sutcliffe Park, which is not a million miles away. I pass it on the bus almost every day or every week. They built a massive, right in the middle, taking up quite a bit of the park, a kind of leisure centre or some kind of building, and yet we can't afford to build hospitals. We've shut down hospitals. Queen Mary's Hospital here used to it replaced the Cottage Hospital.
A leisure centre?
So they seem to want to build anything that will generate income for them, but not that they would have to supply for the population. Because, Nick, if you have to travel 100 miles to the so-called nearest hospital of excellence, and all the accidents and emergencies have gone, you'll be dead by the time you get through the traffic.
I think you'd have to travel more than 100 miles to get to a University of Excellence, Rita. I think that
I'm talking about the hospitals.
The nearest one's in France.
It just seems to me that our world has been turned upside down, willy-nilly, no choice. I do feel a little bit like a cog that... I don't know where my little cog's going. How's it working?
You feel like you've been put in a cup and shaken up like a dice.
Sidelined.
Pardon?
Sidelined.
Sidelined. Yeah, it may feel as though it's all happened in a hurry, but it hasn't. This is it's like a slow-moving catastrophe that we're witnessing here, and it's specifically because successive governments have not built enough housing, and they haven't because they suspect that people, not you, Rita, but people such as yourself, that general demographic, won't like people building houses in their areas, and they will vote accordingly. See, that's the problem. That's what this the Community Secretary Sajid Javid's talking about. Says,
Nick, I don't like wholesale housing without the infrastructure. And the guy who was describing to you the roads and the schools, he didn't mention hospitals. And
I think he maybe did.
The NHS, did he mention hospitals?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Why doesn't it matter?
Whether he mentioned it or not, I don't think it matters
what I'm saying
one way or the other.
The NHS, I think, was housing after the war, okay? What we could be proud of was the GLC. If you look at... I visited friends who are renting an ex-GLC bought flat, and it was superb. The proportions, the solidity of that building.
Well, I bet it was built pre-1930s.
I don't know.
I bet it was. If you're talking about solidity and excellent proportions, then I would guess pre-Second World War. But anyway, Rita, there we have to leave it. There's an entirely different discussion to be had about the quality of housing stock now as opposed to before the Second World War, because after the Second World War, mostly rubbish. At least we can agree on that, eh? If you're living in a house that was built pre-1930s, then you would probably not be able to knock it over with a tank. Who knows what might happen between now and 10 p.m. I mean, it's even possible that Donald Trump might reverse his decision on big game trophy hunting. He's actually tweeted that might actually be the case. It might be that he does the right thing. Can you believe that?
No.
Well, we'll find out. So we'll regroup then at 10 p.m. tonight.